When you can sink into the moment and hold on to the depth of what's right now, and you have a little cheeky toddler in front of you, and you can absorb that presence of their skin and their little voices, that is medicine. That is Xanax, and it's free.
Mm-hmm.
Fulfillment doesn't happen tomorrow. It happens right now. So we do set goals. I want your people to go to the gym. I want them to increase their weights. I want them to reach all their goals. And I want them to be good right now, no matter what. Because that's all we really have.
Welcome to Real Women, Real Results, the podcast where we go beyond the reps and dive into what it really takes to live a stronger, healthier, and more confident life. I'm your host, Jamie Revell, women's fitness expert and founder of W3 Body Women's Training Gyms in Chicagoland. Each week, we'll bring you real stories, expert insights, and the tools you need to create real results. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Real Women, Real Results. I'm Jamie, I'm your host, and today we're diving into a topic that so many women in our community can relate to: burnout, balance, and the guilt that comes from trying to do it all. To help us understand it in a new way, I'm joined by psychotherapist and EQ expert, Jules Wilhelm. Jules, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome. Absolutely. So, Jules, can you start by sharing a little bit about yourself and your background, your education, and the work that you do, please?
My undergrad education is in elementary education and psychology. I actually never worked in the classroom. I fired myself before I got there because I hadn't done any of my own personal therapy work. So I just was very reactive in the classroom. Anyone who has kids or has been in a classroom knows that like classroom management and how to work with kids is probably the most important skill, not necessarily the lesson planning. So I was like, I'm not mature enough for this. So I went back to school and got a master's degree in clinical psychology. I did that for quite a long time, had my own practice, had several people working with me, did some group work, family work, individual retreats, stuff like that. And then I have 4 kids.
Wow.
Well, then it works. It seems like more than that. I have 4 children. And when the youngest went to grade school, most of us recognize that, like, I have a whole 6 hours, because when they're little, sometimes you only have like the preschool hours and you have 20 minutes. Once you run to the store and back, you have 20 minutes to yourself.
Right.
So I started dabbling in a couple other things, and I did some professor work for a university, just some side gig stuff to kind of see what they were doing. And they said, hey, we've got enough clinical people. Would you mind teaching the organizational psychology? And I'm like, sure, why not? So I read the books, and then the next week I taught them. And of course, it all builds on itself. So it wasn't like brand new material, but I really caught a vision for something different than the one-on-one individual transformation. I caught a vision for transforming and helping a lot of people. And a lot of people that either really don't need therapy or will never come to therapy, but they and their lives would be benefited so much if they took some time to become self-aware and learn a few skills.
Interesting. Okay, we'll dive more into that. I have a lot of questions. And initially, what got you really interested in, I guess, emotional intelligence? If we can explore that a little more.
Whoa.
Sure.
Okay, so I spent a lot of time as a clinician,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time, over 20 years. Do you know why most of us go that? Because we want to figure out what's going on inside of us. And truthfully, as a clinician, I wouldn't go to any therapist who didn't have their own therapist. I really wouldn't.
That's a good rule of thumb.
You've got to be doing your own work before you can be giving that away in the most healthy way. And I don't mean all the time, but you've got to have someone that you reflect with, at least from time to time. So I got into the field of clinical psychology to really deeply understand myself, why my relationships, some of them worked, some of them didn't, what caused me pain, all that kind of stuff. And then when I had this space and I started learning about organizational psychology and then doing some teaching on it, I came across this term, which is new to a lot of people, called emotional intelligence. Sometimes you hear it referred to as EQ, as in like IQ, but it's your emotional quotient. And sometimes people call it EI, emotional intelligence. So all of those acronyms, none of those really help us. But what's important is to understand that they started researching the impact of emotions in business, in leadership. And it started with a number of people, but Daniel Goleman is, one of the first to kind of do some big research on that. And they really discovered that leaders and income and climbing ladders and all sorts of things business-wise, a lot of it had to do with not just your skill set, your intellect, your IQ, or your training. It had to do with your emotional capacity to handle failure, to work with others, to hold them accountable. Even on the other side of it, you think like to cast a vision, get people excited to follow you. Like my vision is I want to teach 1.1 million people emotional intelligence skills. I've created a roadmap with 4 steps and 3 tools. If you learn it, your life will change. That's my goal.
All right. We're on that road with you.
Heck yeah.
As they were measuring emotional capacity and how it related to whatever they were measuring, I think you said income. How did they measure that?
That's a great question. And there's qualitative and quantitative research, and it's kind of above my pay grade to explain those levels. I'm trained. I have a master's degree, so I'm trained enough to know how to read research, how to know if it's reliable. But I'm not a detail person. I don't get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how do they know? That's a great question. A lot of times, simply, they create an assessment. Like you've heard of the Myers-Briggs, you've heard of DISC, you've heard of, any number of assessments that are out there. So they developed and clinically tested the reliability of the emotional intelligence components. Now, there are several ways to measure it, several assessments, but it has everything to do with these 4 quadrants of self-awareness and self-management. And then other awareness and relationship connection and awareness and management. And so they took those and they broke them into skills and they measure that. Now, one of the things I also know that, again, this is like from reading the articles and the research, again, could I pin it? I can't. And I'd love if anyone could put all that in there in our notes. Fabulous. Let's do it. What I think is the most reliable is a 360. In the coaching world, I say, my coach asked me, hey, how do you do with your team members? I'm like, they adore me. They do everything I say. I get so much done with them. We have a great synergy. And you're like, great. Now we're going to ask them. And so it's called 360 because you assess the same questions, the supervisor, the peers, and the people they supervise. So you get a 360-degree look at how they actually do with others. And it's very telling sometimes. Sometimes they don't get along with their supervisor, but they have great peer relationships and they get a lot done that way. But they just don't really manage up well. Or the other way, they don't manage people over them well, or that they're supervising. So how do they measure it? They make an assessment.
They do the best they can. Yeah.
They make correlations.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. And thank you for trying for explaining that in the way that, makes sense for you. So I understand. So speaking of and thinking specifically for a lot of my listeners who, of course, are women who are members of my gym or maybe friends, and a lot of them are moms and also working professionals, they're oftentimes pulled in every direction. So from your perspective with the work that you do, why is it so hard to find balance for them today?
It's difficult because if you choose to have a family, you choose to have seasons in your life. but no one tells us that. If you choose to have a family, we have a seasons in our life. So we have a birthing season. We have the getting used to the baby coming. We have the newborn. We have the toddler, which, by the way, they change pretty much every month, as well as grow out of their clothes every month.
Yeah.
And no one tells us that either.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we get caught like, I didn't know all this was coming. And even if you did tell someone, you got to live it to know it.
100% agree.
So part of it is we're kind of caught off guard. Like, oh, I thought I could do 100% in all directions. And I have to prune. I have to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that you have to choose one or the other. Okay. But you have to choose the priorities in one or the other. For example, when I had littles at home, I would tell people, and I was a clinician, I had 20 or 30 clients a week.
Wow.
And I would say to people, look, I have space in my life to love and serve my clients well and run my business. I have space in my life to feed my children and to make sure they know they're loved. That's it. I didn't have the capacity to buy matching pajamas at Christmas. And I'm still sad about that. I didn't have the capacity to clean my floor. I have a story I tell. There was this older couple from a church that came over to help us. And I must have had a newborn or something. I can't remember exactly. But I remember the husband and the wife, the kids are doing some art project. And the husband took a step and I heard, which means there was, I don't know, weeks old orange juice on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a Roomba at the time, but actually I believe every person who has a house needs to get a Roomba. I should sell those. We should get that in the link.
For sure. You should get commission on that.
Heck, I'm telling you, saved my life. So I didn't have that at that point. And I saw him look at his wife like, and she's like she was kind of like, play it down, hon, play it down. And I was like, because I get it. Lovely.
Yep.
I had to make decisions within those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't be everything. And I had to decide what was the most important.
Totally.
And, to be honest, like I said, I still have some grief about that. I never was the room mom in grade school. I just wasn't. My kids wanted me to be. And to be honest, I did it once and I was like, I'm exhausted. It's not my calling. I wasn't good at it.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. I would say this all the time. Grateful to the mothers and the fathers who did PETA, who brought the cookies, who read the books, because I could not with my life.
Do you feel like society sets us up for feeling like we need to do all of those things? Yeah, that's what's kind of coming to mind. It's like, but it's unfair, because then we live with this guilt and that's not healthy.
Oh, agony. I mean, anyone who's a working parent knows the agony of leaving your child with someone, then they might be getting sick or they're just, had a fight with their brother or whatever the tension is. You're like, I'm leaving them and I'm going to work. And then you have to transition into like adult language and wipe the food off your shirt and be with other adults, which, by the way, is really fabulous. That your mind and your body can continue to grow and develop in that way. And it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah, two quick things. One is like when you talk, I have a toddler, by the way, so I understand. And they do yes, every month is different daily. Sometimes I'm like, wow. But what really resonated with me is what you said about expectations. And I said this about childbirth. I said this about, or really recovery and just becoming a parent. And no one can prepare you because like you said, you have to live it. But what you heard beforehand is like, oh, your life is going to change. And I was like, I'm so sick of hearing this. Like, I'm well aware, but you have no idea. And then when you live it, it's, You do the best you can. But I think those expectations are so important, and setting them, even just setting the expectation that I don't know exactly what this is going to be like, and that's okay. And I will figure it out versus I'm expecting this. And then, you could be setting yourself up for failure or agony, like you said, because it's actually different. So just
Yeah.
having that open mind and open expectation.
Yeah, or the guilt or shame of feeling like you've fallen short.
Yeah.
You're not giving your kids what people think they need. The truth is we need to decide.
Hmm.
And one of the things that it's just almost unnatural for us to say, "I have limits," and be good with that. Like, I didn't wash my floor. Pretty sure a lot of people judged me. Too bad,
Hmm.
because what my kids have today is what I focused on. My kids communicate with me. They know they have EQ. In fact, it's difficult for them to have friendships because okay, so my son was in his high school was asked out to the dance where the girls ask the guys.
Hmm.
And he's like, "Well, I don't know her, so we're gonna go out for to lunch." I'm like, "Great." So they do that and I'm, "How was it?" It's his first time and he's like, "I'm not going with her." I'm like, "Why?"
She
And
has no EQ. Is that what he said?
yes,
Yeah, I love it.
he said that. And I'm like, Now I have to teach a whole generation so my kids can get married."
Yeah. You just did too good of a job, Jules. Oh,
Right.
that's funny. But yeah, I mean, how awesome that they learned these skills at such a young age.
Yeah.
Um,
At the cost of other things. Let's be clear,
yeah.
right? We they had less of some other things, like, honestly, like how to put on makeup and how to dress and things that they had to learn on their own because I wasn't teaching them that.
Hmm.
Just certain things that you're like, they have to get it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all figure it out. Speaking back to like our mom example and our women and our professional women, what those that are on the verge of burnout or they're at that point, what does that look like? How might that show up in daily life?
You're gonna be irritable.
Mm.
You're gonna have a short fuse. You're gonna say something and you're not gonna like yourself. You're gonna find yourself throwing your shirt on the floor and blaming someone else. Your capacity is diminished to be yourself.
Mhm.
And let's not forget sleep deprivation for parents,
Mhm.
okay? Sleep deprivation in and of itself gives us less capacity to be our true self.
Yeah.
So when you're in burnout, your emotional regulation skills are very, very low. And we can get very rigid,
Mm.
and sometimes perfectionistic, or we can go the other direction and sort of melt into a puddle on the floor. Listen to your friends. Your friends are gonna start talking to you about it before you know it.
Mm.
Listen to the people who love you. Say, "I'm a little concerned about you." "Ah, I'm fine, whatever." No, I think you ought to pay attention to that.
And something I think that and could lead to a burnout eventually is mom guilt and like, allowing that to overwhelm us in addition to everything else going on. And I know I have a whole episode actually with a member on mom guilt. So we talk about it a lot. How do you think that that ties into the bigger picture here of emotional health?
I have a couple different thoughts, but the first thought is, are we talking about guilt or shame? In emotional intelligence, emotions mean different things. And often we don't pause. Okay, an easy example is irritation is different than rage. Okay. Irritation is like a little warning sign. Something to adjust.
Yeah.
Rage is like, this is way out of line. I will not tolerate. I'm going to protect or I'm going to, right? Okay. Guilt is I've actually done something wrong. Like that's crossed some sort of line, a moral line that I need to repair. And so guilt can be very clean. I yelled at my kids. I feel guilty about that. That's an appropriate thing. What do we do when we feel guilty? We say, "I'm sorry. I own it. How can I make amends?" How many of us were taught that at our dinner table? Unfortunately, not many. Guilt, you'll know you're feeling guilt if you can actually pinpoint what you did and who you hurt, what the impact on them was emotionally, and then how you can repair the relationship. Let's fast forward this for me in real life, right? Oh, God. I can't believe I'm saying this. I really raised my kids to be independent. Okay. It's also true that by number 4, I was like, you can do it. The older kids are doing it.
Mhm.
So my youngest in therapy says to me, Mom, when I was 5 years old, you made me make my own lunch. And I would bring an apple and a granola bar and a pretzel to lunch, and I would feel terrible. And I'm like, is that really true at 5? I don't think so. But she swears that at 5 years old, she was making her own. Well, no, it was about 5th grade. So I'm not saying that's not, and they do their own laundry, the whole thing. Everything my kids were capable of, they did.
Mhm.
I stretched them to the top of their capacity. It served them well today. They didn't like it then.
Yeah.
So when she brought that up to me in therapy, I felt guilty and I felt defensive. That's another sign
Mm.
of shame or guilt. I was like, okay, honey, if that's true, and I know it's true that I did create opportunities for you to stretch over and over. I know that's true. And I do think from time to time it was too much. It really was, especially when I went through a divorce.
Mhm.
It was too much on them. In psychology, we have this word called parentified child. It's when one of the adults starts to relate to the child as like they're an adult, or they're like you're gonna lean on them emotionally or things like that. You know? And in divorces, that's very common that we can start to be like, hey, oldest, I need you to step up and be my partner in certain ways, as opposed to like, hey, you're still this age. I've got to find other people to do that. I some of us in the divorce, some of that happened.
Mhm.
It was yucky. Now that I can own and apologize for and make amends. How do I make amends? I have to say, well, to the one kid that I did it the most, she really needed a couple of months just to do nothing after she graduated from high school. And at first I was like, oh no, you will pay rent, you will whatever. And then it was like, actually, take your time. When else could you just fall apart and have your mom take care of you before you have to go in the world and be responsible for anything? So I'm good with that
Mm.
after a while. So it took a long time to make amends. Now, guilt, we can make amends for. Shame is completely different. Shame is not, did I do something wrong, but I am wrong. Something's uniquely wrong and broken with me that isn't broken with other people. Something is uniquely malfunctioning in me that I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I'm a failure. We have these like things that it goes to this deeper identity, which really, how could I make amends for that?
Mm.
I'm unlovable? I can't make amends for that. If actually, of course, it's not true. I'm fabulous and lovable, and so are you. And I haven't met anyone that I couldn't create a connection with to be fabulous.
So what do we use the word guilt incorrectly oftentimes? But I think we create these situations in our heads is what it sounds like, because for example, when we use the term mom guilt a lot, I don't necessarily think it's mom shame, because I think it's more situational. But is it a situation that is actually happening? So for example, if someone chooses to prioritize themselves and their health to go work out after work instead of going directly home, but they feel guilty, I wouldn't
Yes.
call that shame, but there was no situation necessarily. It's almost the opposite, or the possibility of a situation, but the child might not even realize. They just think mommy's working, or
Yeah.
or mommy's
Agree.
exercising.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily bad. So that's what comes to mind. I
Let's
just wonder.
yeah.
Mhm.
Let's bring that home because that's really important for you and your business.
Yeah.
That's a really important hurdle for working parents to step over in order to take care of their health.
Mhm.
Very, very difficult to maintain that mindset. So, if you're feeling guilty, it is a mindset that the priority I just chose is somehow wrong. If that's true, then it's true, don't go. But if it's not true and the priority is that when you're 72, you don't want osteoporosis so that you can play with your grandchildren. That's why I'm going to the gym today.
Mm-hmm.
If it's true that your dad died of a heart attack when he was 45 and you don't want to, and so you're doing everything you can that your doctors tell you to, which means you have 27.8 less minutes with your child every day, it's probably a good choice. So if it really isn't the life you want to choose and you don't know the why, if you don't know the big why that you're going to exercise, you're going to have some guilt because it'll feel like you're missing out, because the truth is you are. You're missing out on 30 or 40 minutes of their life. That's really true. There's nothing we can do about that. Is it the best choice? Is it the choice you want to make now? And why would you do that? And without, I'm a coach, I'm a, emotional intelligence coach and executive coach, things like that. And one of the big things we talk about is why we are doing things. Why gives us fuel, and it gives us a vision that pulls us forward. And when that's not strong enough, there's a whole lot of things that can get in the way.
Just wondering, what happens if women keep pushing through without addressing burnout, or even just addressing these like possible signs of like, oh, I'm irritable. Maybe I should do something about that.
Something physical or mental gives. Something in your heart breaks, something in your body breaks. I've seen people push and push and push, and they just lose themselves.
Yeah.
They lose touch with who they really want to be, who they are. They don't even feel like they have choices anymore. I hear that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that actually goes into my next question, which is about ignoring emotions. So if you're ignoring emotions rather than listening to them, how does that affect our health and relationships and overall well-being?
It's very clear that when there's some emotions and experiences, big T or little t traumas, that get in our body. There's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score. And there is a way that our body locks away the physical or emotional experience so that we can manage and we can survive the moment. And sometimes that doesn't defrost for a long time until we reach a limit or a capacity, or we go from being a manager to a CFO, and that's our breaking point. Like, okay, now then the emotions break out into a rash or into an injury or something. We all know that the stress and the heart and all those things are linked.
Yeah.
So eventually what happens is it catches up with you. We all think we can escape. And I'm no different. I mean, I was like, how? There's no other way to do it. I have no choice. I have to. Well, no, I didn't.
So, and I know this from looking at your website, but you often say emotions are information. Can you explain what that means in practice?
Sure. Let me link it to one of the most important things that we have. They're called boundaries. It's our ability to say yes to what we want and no to what we don't want. How do we even know what we want and we don't want if we don't know what we feel? We think that's an easy thing. Well, I want to feel good. I feel drawn toward experiences that make me feel good. But let's just try this on. I go to one gym and I do it and I'm like, yes, I did it, but I didn't meet anybody. I don't actually feel drawn to the trainer. I go to another one and and I'm doing the same thing, but I have a different emotion when I'm done. I feel empowered. I feel respected. What makes the difference? Relationship and environment. I think the key actually to business in any service industry is how you are emotionally and relationally, because emotions are like viruses. They're catchy. And you can tell I'm a true extrovert. I mean, like talking to you, I'm totally, woo, right? For other people, that's not the case. They need to know where their energy comes from. And for me, knowing how to fuel my energy and that my energy fuels others, I choose my career, I choose my time. We want to do things that make us feel good. So if we disconnect from the things that we want or that we feel, we really have a hard time saying no to things, especially if they're good things. We also lack the ability to know when we've reached a tipping point. So here, all of us understand this. You're frustrated and you're like, it's fine. I can get over it. I can handle it. You're frustrated and I can handle it. Well, then you're more frustrated. And by the time you get to saying, I'm going to do something about it, you're enraged. Then we react. We don't act on our emotion. Then it controls us instead of us acknowledging and getting the information and taking responsibility for it, shaping our life. We don't want emotions to run our life, but we want the information from them.
Speaking of what you said about being disconnected or even starting to hit tipping points, what's 1 to 2 EQ strategies that women can start using right away to manage stress or guilt or reconnect?
There are 2 ways to think about this. What can I do solo? What do I need community for? Most of us think we better figure it out on our own. And I'll tell you what, by the time you're in burnout, you don't have anything to give to yourself. That's when we need others. I would say go to someone that cares about you and say, I do not want you to interrupt me. I want you to smile and nod and say, tell me more. Tell me more until I stop talking. Don't fix me. Don't judge me. Don't tell me what to do. Just let me get it out. Can you give me that gift? I think there's an epidemic of loneliness and disconnection.
Yeah.
And when I say that about having someone do that, I know 2 things. One is most people have maybe 1 or 2 of those people in their lives that they would even consider trusting. And I also know that it's highly unlikely that both of them have the emotional intelligence to sit and listen without interrupting. My dream is to create communities around this where you've got the training, you've taken the EQ training, we have a conference or we're going out to dinner, whatever it might be, and if we're the EQ conference and people are standing in line and to check in and someone says, oh my gosh, that Uber, I thought I was going to die. And the person next to him said, what? Tell me more. And they're like, are you here with EQ? I am. They're like, could you please listen to me on the roadmap? Because this roadmap is 4 steps, right? Because I am losing it. Sure, I'd be happy to. And they would know what to do, even with a stranger. If we establish that, we could have pockets of people getting support around all the most important things of their life. Let me bring it to you right here. You have someone who wants to work out. They know their why. They're driving there. And they just get this guilt tug. I better go back. Oh, I wonder if the babysitter remembered this or did that or, all those things. At that moment, that's when we need others to call and say, I'm just 5 minutes from the gym. I want to go, but I don't want to go. And what I need from you is encouragement. I got you. I'll encourage you. What I need from you is kick in the pants. I can do that too. But someone with high EQ knows what they need to help them reach their goals. And what we need, not necessarily all the time, is advice or information or even a kick in the pants. What we need is grace, gentleness, acceptance.
Do you think it's also said on the contrary where someone with a high EQ knows what someone else needs or not necessarily?
That's a really interesting question. How do you feel when someone else tells you what you need?
Probably not.
Or tells you what you feel?
Not great.
Right.
But I guess from the sense of not tells you, but they're just they automatically sense, let's say you're anxious, you're stressed, you're about to whatever because you have all this shame, guilt,
Yep.
somewhere in between.
What's going on?
Yeah, and so they're there for you. They got you, right?
Yep.
Like that's what I mean.
Yep. So that's a series of skills. So for high EQ, I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm feeling something because you're feeling something. And I know how to separate my feeling from you. And I say, oh, Jamie's she's kind of off. She feels a little stressful. I wonder how I could be helpful. And I have the ability to turn my attention to you and become curious without judgment, without trying to change you, without trying to make you move past it too quickly. I have no agenda. except to be connected to you. So what helps people is that process. We call it attunement. I have skills and we call it an attunement funnel till we get to like, what's the core issue or what's the summary? And then I can say, how could I be helpful? One of my favorite things is this author. Would you like me to hear you, hug you, or help you? The person with high EQ asks you what you need. Most of us say, I have no idea. So then a person with EQ gives you a menu for your simplest form. Hear you, help you, hug you. That's from Super Communicators, the book. I didn't come up with that. The higher EQ gives you a menu of, I feel like maybe you could use some encouragement, but maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just understanding or affirmation. Would any of those feel good for me to give you right now? Would any of those feel good for you to have from anyone in the world? Maybe not me.
How does one increase their EQ? And I imagine it's something that is practiced consistently, just like fitness, to see lasting results versus it's not like an overnight. I'm all of a sudden very emotionally intelligent.
Just like you start with a 5-pound weight and then you work up to it and then you find other muscles that are bigger and you bench press and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to a seminar on EQ on Monday, and Friday when someone comes in your office with their hair on fire, you throw it all out the window. You forgot everything. It's best learned by taking the small skills and habit stacking.
Cool.
Are you familiar with habit stacking?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I apply that to the emotional intelligence skills. One thing to know is EQ it's made up of a bunch of different skills. Some of us absorbed them growing up, others didn't. The great thing is, as an adult today, you can learn them if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we start? I think the thing I would just suggest, easy, go on the internet, download a feelings sheet, and then ask yourself once a day, how am I feeling? Label it. Get very clear on what level of intensity you're feeling right now. Don't do anything else. Don't judge it. Don't try to act on it. Don't say, oh, this is information. Nothing. You spend a whole week and a half doing that. Why? Because you want it to be a muscle that can automatically adjust, like riding a bike or driving a car that we no longer think about, all these pieces, right? I have on my website a do-it-yourself emotional intelligence course. It's like $49, something like that. And it's 7 days focusing on one skill every day. You could start with that. There's some tools in there.
I love it. How does being emotionally intelligent help women not only be better moms or professionals, but also just feel more present and fulfilled? Because I think that's something we hear and talk about a lot. And I feel it as well. Like, how can I not only just put my phone away so that I'm automatically more present, but really feel it and be in the moment?
Now we're moving into a different aspect of self-regulation, which might be about mindfulness, practicing the presence. It's a different muscle to exercise because the EQ we've been talking about thus far is about the emotional energy, the emotional environment, mine and others, and how we respond to that. Now we're talking about going into a skill set of regulating your emotions, which has a lot to do with simply being in the present. Well, the emotional intelligence that I teach will help you be more connected to yourself and therefore more present. It'll help you be more fulfilled because you're going to have a yes muscle and a no muscle. It'll help you know that you're not on the right track and give you some energy to make some change if you're not feeling fulfilled. But more than that, I think we chase feeling joy, like happiness and joy all the time. And I think if we can be like, you know what, I feel present and I am fully, like I'm looking outside right now, I'm just really grateful. If I sink into this moment right here, Jamie, it would take me a year to tell you all of the things that brought me to this moment where I was even able to speak to you or meet you at Innovation DuPage because I started a business. Or when you can sink into the moment and hold on to the depth of what's right now, and you have a little cheeky toddler in front of you, and you can absorb that presence of their skin and their little voices, that is medicine. That is Xanax, and it's free.
Mm-hmm.
Fulfillment doesn't happen tomorrow. It happens right now. So we do set goals. I want your people to go to the gym. I want them to increase their weights. I want them to reach all their goals. And I want them to be good right now, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all we really have.
Yeah.
Right now. And if we start to lose ourselves, how do we practice being good right now?
Totally. Interesting.
That's what EQ does.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, well, how can people find you and work with you?
JulesWilhelm.com, JulesWilhelm.com. On my website, there are ways you can get a hold of me and just kind of get curious.
Yeah, that I am even more curious than when I was before this. And I will say that I've done the worksheet with you for the women's thing we did a couple months ago about, I think we choose 5 words
Maybe.
or something like that about how we were feeling right now. And there were a ton of words on that sheet. And it was so interesting to really try to pinpoint like all the different emotions, like you're feeling, a little excited to meet new people, but a little anxious and also happy. And it was cool. It was really eye-opening and also just very reflective in the moment, which was nice. So I appreciated that. Mm-hmm.
So I do keynotes, I do workshops, I do individual coaching, but the best thing I think anyone could do is invest in my EQ University class that starts in March 2026.
Cool.
It is for people who really want to make sure they've got it.
Cool.
The uniqueness of this program is not just the information, but it's the practice. We have EI Lab.
Ooh.
Where the training might be get curious and tell me more. You go into a Zoom room, it's all virtual, with a coach and 3 other people, and you actually practice it right there. So you can get help if you need it. And then it also reveals that 80% of people think they have high EQ, and when they try to practice it, they actually realize maybe I don't have everything.
Yeah.
And so it's a humbling thing and vulnerable, but people who have invested in it, it's changed their lives, their marriages, their work.
Wow. That sounds awesome. Cool. Well, I hope our listeners do check that out and your website and get curious, like you said, and not only get curious, but explore that curiosity and take it one step further.
I hope so too.
Yes. And I have one final question for you, Jules, that I like to ask everyone. What does being a strong woman mean to you in this phase of your life?
55. I got to own that shit. I got to say, this is my season. I'm 55 and owning that I've lived long enough to have gone through seasons of development and not look back and say, I wish I was there, but say, what's next? To own my gray hair, which actually is quite trendy right now.
It's nice.
And then be willing to become the older woman in the room without any regret or being like, oh, I don't want to be old. I just am. Just be where I am. I think that's the short version.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for answering. I know that was probably a curveball. I don't think I gave you that one. But yes, thank you again, Jules, for being on this podcast and for sharing all of your wisdom with us. And to our listeners, thank you again for tuning in. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who might need the reminder that she's not alone. And as always, if you're looking for support on your fitness and wellness journey, we're here for you at W3 Body. Thanks for tuning in to Real Women, Real Results. If you loved this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and leave a review. It helps more women find these powerful stories. If you're local and want to join our gym, check out our 4-week trial. Head to train@w3body.com for more info. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, W3Body_Berwyn and W3Body_Elmhurst for more strength, support, and community. See you next time.